Hi everybody, welcome to 5 Minutes on Safety today. Today we're going to talk about reasonably practicable. Now, reasonably practicable is what the term that they use in the legislation to define how you would decide whether the risk versus the cost versus the difficulty is all balanced. It's probably the easiest way to put it. So in real terms, they don't expect you to spend $100,000 to do a 5-minute job because that's the only way that it can be done completely safe. But they don't expect you to not spend any money to do a 5-minute job that will put people at immense risk. So what you are doing is you are weighing up the cost versus the benefits effectively of how you're going to do this job, and then you will decide what is as low as reasonably practicable. That's this term here, commonly referred to as ALARP, which is not really very commonly referred to. But what you're trying to do effectively is you're trying to say, well, I want to make this as safe as possible, but we're also running a business and people have to pay for this service, so they're not going to pay $100,000 for it because that's the only way I can do it safely. They're happy to pay $1,000 for it, so that's reasonable, and I can put these other safety measures in place which make it practical for me to do it in that price range. That's what reasonably practicable is really about. You are weighing the risk, so the risk here gets lower versus the cost getting higher, and so you're trying to find a sweet spot in the middle. Now, it won't always be as beautifully laid out as this, but that's effectively what you're trying to figure out when you do a job, or maybe when you're pricing a job and things like that. So a really good example is using things like scissor lifts and elevated work platforms and stuff like that. So obviously having a ladder is cheaper than having a scissor lift, but a ladder is much more risky to work off, and you really shouldn't be working directly off a ladder unless you can hold it with one hand and do something with the other. So to lower the risk, you get a scissor lift. It increases the cost of your job a little bit, but it increases your safety dramatically. And so that's a good example of how you use this kind of scenario. The same thing with putting edge protection around the eaves of a building. Yes, it increases the cost, but it also increases your safety dramatically and lowers the risk of working on that roof dramatically. So it's a very good compromise and a good payoff. And it helps you to find this sweet spot where you can figure out if something's as low as reasonably practicable. There will always be scenarios that might not fit exactly into this, but this is what you are meant to be thinking when you price up work, or a product or a service or anything like that. Am I incorporating lowering the risk as low as I possibly can? Am I incorporating that into the cost? What are people willing to pay for that service? Do I want to be in that area? So another good example of this is if you service air conditioners, for example, and and 2-story houses obviously are a high risk because you've got to get up onto the 2nd story. If you're going to pull apart an evaporative air conditioner, you're going to get water everywhere. It's a high risk type of job. Now, most residential homes won't have any harness points and things like that on the roof, so they won't have some nice safe way for you to do that. So you are going to have to charge that customer more because you're going to have to set up a safe way for that to happen on the roof. So if they're happy to pay, maybe they're happy to pay $200 to get it serviced, but really it's going to take you 2 hours to do that because you're going to have to set up, you're going to have to create a harness point and different things like that. Maybe you can only do it for $300 to make sure that your risk is low enough. So you have to weigh those things up. And if the customer isn't willing to pay that, then you have to look at your options and say, well, you know, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe there's other work I should focus on. Because unfortunately there are dodgy people out there who will do high risk stuff without taking any of this into consideration. And if they do get caught out or something goes wrong, they're going to end up in a big pile of hurt. But that's not where you want to be. So you want to make sure you're always thinking about this, making sure you've got things in place. This can either be done through a SWIMS if it's high risk work. You could do a job safety analysis or a job hazard analysis. You might do risk assessments if it's a big job. There's lots of different ways you can document this process, which this is really what a SWIMS is documenting. This is the job, these are the risks and the hazards, this is what we're doing to minimize them, and that's what it's all about. So to summarize, this is one of the most key parts of understanding how to manage your workplace health and safety. There is nothing more important really other than understanding how to manage that that process, and make sure that when you look through your business, when you do a review, look through your business and go, have I got everything as low as reasonably practicable? Because that's one of the key things that WorkSafe will look at if they ever come and do an investigation, or they're coming to site just to do a visit. So really important concept, and a really simple one to grasp once you get the fundamental part. So have a great day, and thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.